weighing what you are prepared to sacrifice in the balance against what you would like to have happen with your life, the success that you would like. One of the things that I adore about the internet is that it's allowed us to have direct and open access to everything a lot more easily than we would have had in the past. We now can access just about anybody we want in the world. However, even more so has become the requirement to meet people face to face. Last night I spent some time in the studio, and then after that I was at an event where I was filming with one of the orchestras, the symphonic orchestras. And what was very, very interesting was that the amount of people that I met in a short space of time in relation to the number of people that I met in, say, a month was extraordinary. And don't get me wrong, I've been going to business breakfasts, expos, conventions, etc. But what's really fascinating is how many people you can meet in a very compressed amount of time. So it really does pay dividends to be aware of this ratio of how much time are you prepared to invest in something, and what are you prepared to sacrifice, right? Versus what kinds of returns are potentially available to you. And we're always assessing that. Even on a subconscious level, we're always assessing that. I spoke to a friend of mine yesterday who I met a few weeks ago. And one of the things that he kept saying was that, all of this effort for what? All of this effort for what? So we're always assessing, and I think as people get older, they definitely become more aware of their effort for what they're accessing. Very, very important. What are we accessing? That wasn't for me, by the way, that little hoot. That was for the person in front of me because they're going very, very slow. Just thought I'd say that. But you have to decide, like this person in front of me, she's taking a very long time to decide where it is that she's going, and she's slowed down traffic quite massively. I think I'm going to overtake. But what's really interesting is that we are continually finding this requirement to gauge whether we are actually achieving or not. Are we achieving? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to challenge you with the deadlines bracket. Always know in the looping cycle where it is that you need to cut your losses and move on, or whether you continue to move forward because you can see those rewards, and those rewards are very clear now, right? So as rewards become more and more clear, you start to realize, okay, this is worth staying in this game. And sometimes people turn around and say, well, we have no customers, we're a startup company, we have no customers yet, we're definitely in this for the next 2-3 years, however, it's not generating any money. It's a great idea. What are we to do? Well, you're always generating money. It's not like it's about your customers. Ultimately, your customer base is there. It is about your customers, of course, but it's about this as well. It's about raising of funding and financing and funding pools and investor groups and angel groups and joint venture capital partners and seed capitalists, and all of those things are happening right now. There's equity to be given out. You're still selling. You might not be selling the eventual product, but you are selling something. So there's definitely a requirement to, at all stages, be working towards and be generating a scorecard, that you can see this is working. We're doing this, and this is working, and we're doing this, and this is working, and we're doing this, and this is working. So there should be things that are working all the time along the way, and you should be able to see it progressively getting better and better. And if things are not working, then obviously call it back in and stop and check things out. some years ago, I was working on it's over a decade ago actually, I was working on a TV show, and we started to shoot the pilot episode. Fortunately, we were very careful, and we had a contingency plan in place. But one of our, well, not one, there was a group of suppliers, somehow created a situation in which we were going over budget on that pilot show, that pilot episode. And we were going over budget a lot. And my first instinctive thing after the second day was to stop production. Totally. Stop production. Just don't do anything else. Just stop and reassess and work out whether it was worth continuing at this level or not. And it was one of the best things I did. You know, we made a stock take of where our costs were, how many generator trucks, how many stunt bags were being used, how many stunt teams, how many actors, how much talent was being used, how many support crew, catering, location hire. It just went on and on and on. There was all these things that we were going to be using, and the lighting trucks alone were costing a fortune. So we thought, you know, this ain't good. This isn't good. We're gonna have to stop. So we did. We stopped. And it was one of the probably better things to do, because from that moment on, I could see that, you know, we could only get better if we stopped this pouring faucet. So we revised the budget. We revised how we were going to film this project, this pilot. And there's nothing like the movie industry to suck money. I mean, it's an incredible industry of unquantifiables. You know, it's every day. There's all kinds of things that come up that you didn't expect. You know, locations are not available. Actors are being a prima donna. Not that it happens often, but it happens. Crew members decide that they don't want to work because they've been working too much for the whole week, or, you know, the food isn't the best on set. You know, I mean, we go for the best catering now. Everything is the best possible that we can. And these projects are very small budget projects. You know, they can't go over. We can't have overages, as they call it, overages or over budget situations. We can't have that. Overages can kill a movie. The same with our music division. You know, just recently, again, you know, a piece of music that was supposed to have cost a fraction of what it was supposed to cost lands up costing so much more. So the arts are the best. I love this as an industry, because the chances of it being successful are so much better than with so many other things. But at the same time, the costs are so unquantifiable and so tricky. But the measurement is, you know, you have to stop and say, is this worth it? Are we going in the right direction? Is it worth it? You know, is it worth it? It's really important to ask that question along the way with everything, right? You undertake something. You begin doing musical lessons. I mean, you know, you take on a course doing construction or realty, and you check in. Is this going places? Now, I'm all for continuing. Don't give up. Just keep going. Keep compounding the growth. Keep building on what you have already. Keep assimilating. Knowledge will fill, you know, your pockets with gold. So you really have to really continue and move on and keep going forward. So many people take things in or absorb things, but they don't do much with it. Like all things, you know, what is it that you're doing with what you have? Turn that into something. I'll give you an example of where I'm going with this. I could be listening right now to audio libraries, university. You know, I'm always studying, I'm always learning, I'm always discovering. You know, I have a little disability that is very intense in terms of, but I still stay on top of it. I still stay on top of it in terms of my reading, my writing, my learning, my discovering. I have to continue to do that. I can't sit back and just wallow away. Now, I could be absorbing information, but at the same time, I don't want to lose time. So, you know, I'm either going to absorb and take in, or I'm going to give and add value to other people's lives, which is what I'm doing now with this recording, is really deliver to people thoughts and ideas that will hopefully trigger new ways of understanding things. Now, in particular, I think is very valuable is that we create a master plan. We always have to have a plan. By the way, I have plans for everything. I have a roadmap. I call them roadmaps, but I have a roadmap for every project. I create a project and I roadmap it. It doesn't matter how badly it is. It doesn't matter what I roadmap. I mean, I could go, you know, we're going to create an album as an example. I could have picked real estate, but I'll pick anything, you know, but I can, let's say we decide we're going to develop an album. So I roadmap it. I go, what's this album about? You know, where's it going? What's it, you know, what is it ultimately going to be doing? What's it going to be in the marketplace? Why is it going to be of any value in the marketplace? Is it a master builder idea? Is it a clock building idea? Is it something very exciting in terms of music? You know, is it going to be impactful? Is it an ideas generator? Is it an ideas conveyor? You know, and how's it going to be produced and recorded? And how innovative is it going to be? Is it going to be all electronica, or is it going to be a soundtrack? Is it going to be organic in its growth? You know, where are we going to go to? Where are the costs going to come from? Or are we going to spend time up in the hills recording Tibetan singing bowls? You know, are we going to be producing this so that it's one of many, or is it a one-off album? You know, is it going to be put into the marketplace through SoundCloud, or is it going to be sold on iTunes? Are we licensing it to the motion picture industry? So all these questions come up, and there's a roadmap, right? This roadmap might be a page, it might be half a page, but I have an idea how it's going to move, and then I put a deadline day on there. I put a date. I go, you know, 17th of September, 2017, this project will be completed. Now, that's a very long time for a project from today. Normally, I give myself 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. So I find a way to almost instantaneously turn it around. You know, I was doing cosmetic renovators, you know, for years, doing them, you know, every 6 months, every year, turning them around in every 2 years, until I met this lady from Queensland who was doing these cosmetic renovators in like 7, 8, 10 days. And that was a total mind spin for me, because it made me realize, what else could I be doing like instantaneously? I mean, you know, instantaneously I went into the cosmetic renovators part of what I'm doing, you know, forget 6 months, talk about a month, talk about 20 days, talk about 10 days, but do it as quickly as possible. I've done this now with everything, you know, film production, series production, commercialization of entertainment, whatever it is. You know, can we do this in 10 days? People go, what? This is a 2-year project. No. Can I do this in 10 days? They're like, no, but, you know, let's target for 10 days, and anything over 10 days, we're over time. You know, we're over budget, really. So with modern technologies, with modern abilities, we can do extraordinary things. I mean, I can quite literally take the production of an album out of the studio on the road, and I could be in a park, you know, continuing to create. Really, all I need is the studio environment for a closed mic effect, or all I need is the studio environment to insulate voices. After that, I can play with it as much as I like. Provided I've got headphones, I can pretty much do that. Same with all of our engineers. Are you giving your technicians, engineers, and crew too long to do things? Are they taking too long? Many years ago, I worked for McDonald's, and one of the extraordinary things I learned about the McDonald's system is that clock, the time. There's a little ticker going on all the time from the minute that order comes in. Within a very short space of time, that burger has to be completed, done, produced, and in your hands. If not, it gets thrown out. That should be what happens. So there's a standard, an extremely high standard in terms of production versus time, right? The best, but not the very best, for the least amount of time as quickly as possible to fulfill the need competitively and sell it at a fair price. So keep continually questioning, the process, and decide for yourself once and for all, I will complete this in a reasonable amount of time, and I'm going to check in and make sure that the project doesn't just drag. As a final note on what I'm trying to communicate here, I have discovered that sometimes we think we've finished a project. We're under this impression, okay, it's done. But then it sits on a computer and nothing happens with it. It sits on a hard drive for a long time before you suddenly realize, what did I do with that project? I've done nothing with that project. That movie's been complete for a long time. It went to 2 or 3 fests, but we didn't finish the process. Let's get back into it. And 6 months have gone by. Really that long. So I've got to a stage now where I go, if that project's sitting on that board, on that production board, it's not complete until it's out of the system. Until I've erased it, right? Until I've erased the whiteboard and that project's off the board, we haven't achieved our goal. It's not complete. Very important attitude to have. How many projects have you started on and you've developed and you've completed and they look great and they're amazing and they should be out there, but for whatever reason they're not out there? And maybe it's time, genuinely, maybe it's time that you really, really got stuck in and made it happen, right? Very, very important. So, may I ask you to please revisit some of those projects. Revisit, go back, look at what you were doing, and see maybe if there's something that you could bring back, resuscitate, pull it back into the market, and make a big deal out of it. We're always looking for the next project, the next project. I read a book on advertising some years ago, and I think it's called It's Not What You Do, It's How Good You Are at Doing It, or something like that. It's not what you do, it's how good you are at it. It's how good you want to be. This book there's a comment in it which I loved, and it came from an advertising creative, an ad agency creative, and he said, the thing that you think, a lot of people are always looking, they're always somewhere else, looking at the next project as the one that's going to be amazing. And he says, no, the one you're on, the project you're working on right now, that's the one you should make amazing. Whatever that project is, that's the one you should turn into something magical. Okay? Very important state of mind. Whatever you're in now, this is the one. This could be the project. Just make it amazing. I work with clients, and I know how clients don't want that much innovation. They don't want to be flat out creative. It's their money. They don't want to take risks. They really want to be as mainstream as possible because that's what everybody else is doing. But I can tell you right now, as much as possible, your sales job's not completed until you have said, I am going to make things happen differently.